National Office for Suicide Prevention forecasted that within a few months, the remaining A&Es without one would have a liaison psychiatric nurse appointed. With the words of commitment from government ringing in our ears, we look forward to extending those services, especially in the large A&Es from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. Thursday to Monday. And during presentations to the A&E Forum, this speaker and the Group Care Manager for Mental Health, Martin Rogan, spoke of the need to move forward this agenda. Regrettably, not alone has enhancement of services not happened, but the situation has deteriorated, with liaison psychiatric nursing posts now vacant in 8 or 20% of A&Es. The future of the health service depends on a highly trained, well-motivated and dedicated nursing workforce. Right now, we have a workforce demoralised by rejection, exhausted by crisis management and more seeking an exit strategy into other professions. Who can blame them? Professor Drum talks of a time of unprecedented opportunity for nurses and leads us from crisis to crisis. The Taoiseach in waiting talks of protecting frontline staff and services and then watches with disinterest as nursing posts are abolished. The managers tell benchmarking there is no retention problem in nursing when the truth is so terribly different. Young nurses see it all, hear it all and are so sick of it all that the numbers moving abroad in 2007 increased by 26% on the previous year. In recent weeks, many of our students who were previously guaranteed a minimum 2-year fixed-term contracts have now been told there is no work for them. The imposition of the employment embargo in September 2007 and its replacement by the employment control framework in 2008 has been a blunt instrument, the purpose of which is to address employment excesses in non-frontline grades, but which in reality is inflicting hardships on patients and undermines the rights and conditions of employment of many frontline staff, including nurses. The control framework was at first seen by managers as abolishing all posts that were vacant on December 31st. The HSE's Director of HR clarified the position in his letter of the 1st of April. He said, "Firstly, the operation of the employment control framework does not mean that posts vacant at the end of 2007 are abolished. It is difficult to see how priority is to be properly afforded to frontline services unless real choices are made by local managers as to what vacancies are to be filled. I would expect," he said, "that such priority would be supported by the P&A. The National Assistant Director of the PCCC from Dublin Mid Leinster further elaborated when he said, "The responsibility for the management of staffing resources is a matter for the LHO office within the governance of the Area Derogation Committee. On this basis, all applications to fill current vacancies are critically reviewed by local management in advance of submission to the Area Derogation Committee for approval. A clear and unequivocal priority is given to applications in respect of frontline service providers, including nursing staff. The prioritisation of such posts can be evidenced by the approvals to date issued by way of the derogation process." And then he says, "It is acknowledged that the current control arrangements provide limited opportunity to deal with vacancies arising prior to 2008. However, in exceptional circumstances, identified non-current critical vacancies in frontline posts can be addressed in the context of offset against 2008 vacancies. Essentially then, nursing vacancies currently being covered by overtime, by agency and by temporary nurses, where complements are being maintained, can only be permanently filled in exceptional circumstances by the suppression of administrative and support posts deemed surplus to requirements. Colleagues, this is highly unsatisfactory. Nursing posts are only deployed for one purpose and one purpose only, to provide care to patients. If those posts are damaged, patient care is damaged. If those posts are unfilled, then the government's investment in student nurse education is undermined. And if those posts are unfilled, the cutbacks target overtime, agency and temporary nurses, then patients cannot be cared for properly. Colleagues, it's the absolute responsibility of all our branches, and I'm sure most of you have done it at this stage, but it is our responsibility to identify and, if possible, to agree your services nursing complement with management. to insist on pre-January 1st vacancies being included, to insist on those vacancies being constantly referred into the derogation process monthly so that the posts are kept alive, and to insist in any local discussions that as part of any modernisation or other agreements being sought by management, that those posts are filled on a permanent basis. At the same time, the Union has referred a number of new cases to the Labour Relations Commission claiming breach of contract where posts were offered and then withdrawn, claiming compensation for young nurses, some of whom were offered employment and whose offers were cancelled, leaving them out of work for months, claiming compensation where nurses successfully competed for promotional posts, but are left acting in those posts on an acting allowance rather than appointed to a higher salary. And those cases will be proceeded with in the coming weeks. Colleagues, our society has created patterns of living in which crime is rife, drug abuse and addiction at record levels, and suicide at frightening levels. We have 40,500. Is this in your speech? It's not in yours, is it? No, that was left out. I just noticed this is a copy of the third last draft. I'll take yours again. Yeah. Good. Okay, sorry about that. The future efficacy of the health service depends on a highly trained, well-motivated and dedicated nurse working force. Right now, we have a workforce demoralised by rejection, exhausted by crisis management and more seeking an exit strategy into other professions, and who can blame them? In recent weeks, many of our students who were previously guaranteed minimum 2-year fixed-term contracts have now been told there's no work for them. Professor Drum talks of a time of unprecedented opportunity for nurses and leads us from crisis to crisis. I've done that, haven't I? I'll move on. The P&A has campaigned for many years for a comprehensive 7-day, 24-hour community-based service. We were amazed during the 1990s when managers not only objected but criticised our approach, insisting that we had failed to develop an understanding of the principles of community care. They had some notion, because they wanted a cheap Monday to Friday 9-to-5 service, that patients would oblige and disease would manifest only within these hours. You will understand then my great pleasure in receiving a letter from the HSEA some months ago seeking our cooperation with the development of extended hours of service. However, as is their wont, they require us to sign a blank cheque, allowing them to change contracts for new appointees and to facilitate local discussions for implementation. The P&A position is clear and unambiguous. We welcome the arrival of the employers to the real world of community mental health. We have requested the establishment of an overarching national committee to agree principles and protocols to govern implementation. We need to factor into our considerations the lessons learned from the 2 pilots which sought to extend community mental health nursing to 7 days but failed in Cork and Laois Offaly. We need to examine issues relating to health and safety and the lone worker. We need to ensure that at a time of